From the very first moment I drew breath in the deep, loamy soil of our vast forest home, I understood my purpose. I was a worker, a gatherer, a tiny cog in the magnificent, humming machine of my colony. My family praised my diligence. My strength, though small, was relentless. I would march through towering blades of grass that were like ancient green skyscrapers under a sky perpetually dappled with shifting patterns of light and shadow. I felt a certain pride in my duty, in the predictable rhythm of our existence, safe in our intricate underground city. But that feeling was not destined to last. A change began, subtle at first, like a single cloud marring a perfect blue sky. It started with the peacock. I was hauling a grain of rice twice my size when I heard his raucous cry. I turned, and there he was, a breathtaking explosion of iridescent blue and emerald green, his tail a fan of 1,000 shimmering, jeweled eyes. The entire forest seemed to pause, every creature captivated by his performance. A bitter thought, sharp and cold, pierced my heart. They never look at me like that. I am just background noise. The envy festered, growing thorns that caught on every thought. Next it was the butterfly, a living piece of stained glass window tossed gently on the breeze. She danced from flower to flower, her freedom absolute, her world limitless. I watched her, my own feet forever anchored to the gritty, unforgiving earth. A deep, aching longing filled me. Why was I cursed to only crawl, to never know the dizzying thrill of flight, to never see my home from that impossible, glorious height? My own strong legs suddenly felt like prison chains. Even the squirrel, so common, became an object of my painful fixation. I'd see her, a flash of russet fur, leaping through the canopy with a fearless, gravity-defying grace. From one precarious branch to another she'd fly, chattering without a care in the world. I, meanwhile, trudged below, navigating a treacherous landscape of pebbles and cracks. My world was so small, so horizontal. Hers was a vast, three-dimensional playground. The comparison was a poison, and I drank it deeply. Daily until it soured my very spirit. The weight of this new bitterness became a burden heavier than any seed I could ever carry. My work, once my pride, now felt meaningless, a monotonous sentence. I began to lag behind my sisters, my movements sluggish, my focus shattered. I'd hide under a fallen leaf, not to rest, but to simply stare into the dim green light, listening to the joyful sounds of others living the lives I desperately wanted. The colony's harmonious hum began to sound like a taunt, a reminder of my own insignificant earthbound existence. My family noticed, of course. My mother would gently tap my antennae with hers, a silent question in her touch. "Little one," my sister would ask, her voice full of concern, "why do you carry such a heavy cloud on your shoulders? Your light is dimming." Their kindness was a mirror, and I couldn't bear to look into it. I would just offer a weak, brittle smile and shuffle away, retreating further into the lonely prison of my own making. I was isolating myself, brick by bitter brick. I became a ghost in my own life, going through the motions without any heart. I'd watch the raindrops begin to fall from a leaf above, each one a crashing, transparent planet, and instead of seeking shelter, I'd wonder what it would be like to be washed away. The vibrant, life-filled forest around me had transformed into a gallery of my own inadequacies. Every sound, every movement, was a reminder of what I was not, of what I would never, ever be. The envy was consuming me, whole. The air began to change one afternoon. It grew thick, heavy, and unnervingly still. The birdsong, usually a constant, cheerful chorus, fell silent. A deep, ominous rumble echoed from somewhere far, far away, a growl from the belly of the world itself. A strange, electric tension crackled through the atmosphere, making my antennae twitch with primal alarm. The light took on a sickly, yellow-green hue, casting long, distorted shadows that seemed to writhe and twist. Something was coming. Something immense, but lost in my self-pity, I barely registered the warning. The first gust of wind was not a breeze, but a violent shove, a monstrous breath that tore leaves from branches and sent pebbles skittering. The world exploded into chaos. The distant rumble became an earth-shaking roar, advancing with terrifying speed. The trees, my entire universe, began to whip back and forth like frantic dancers, their branches snapping with sounds like gunshots. Rain didn't fall, it was unleashed, a solid, punishing wall of water that instantly turned the world into a cold, roaring flood. This was no shower. This was an annihilation. Panic, pure and instinctual, finally ripped me from my melancholy. I scrambled, slipping in the churning mud, fighting the torrential current that sought to sweep me away. My small size, once my greatest shame, was now my most desperate liability. I was a speck in a hurricane. Through the blinding sheets of rain, I saw a flash of brilliant color. The peacock, drenched and stumbling, his magnificent tail dragging in the mud like a sodden, worthless rug. And in that single, horrifying moment, my world of envy shattered. This was not about beauty anymore. This was about survival. I fought my way through the liquid chaos, every instinct screaming at me to find the entrance to our underground sanctuary. The familiar landmarks were gone, washed away in the deluge. My heart hammered against my tiny shell, not with jealousy now, but with a raw, primal fear I had never known. Another deafening crack split the air, and I watched in horror as the mighty oak the squirrel called home groaned, tilted at an impossible angle, and began its terrible, slow-motion descent to the ravaged earth below. There was no escape for anyone. Somehow, by sheer luck or fate, my scrambling legs found the hidden entrance to our nest, nearly obscured by mud and debris. I tumbled inside, down into the welcoming, familiar darkness. The sounds of the apocalypse above became a muffled roar. All around me, my colony was huddled, antennae trembling, but we were safe. Our tunnels, engineered over generations, held firm against the fury. The deep, solid earth protected us. In that moment, the very thing I had taken for granted, my home was the only reason I was still alive. The truth was a physical blow. I thought of the butterfly then. Her delicate, powdered wings would be instantly waterlogged, anchors dragging her down into the drowning world. I thought of the squirrel, her home destroyed, her agility useless against the relentless pounding rain. I thought of the peacock, his vanity soaked into the mud, and a profound, burning shame washed over me, hotter than any envy I had ever felt. I had wasted so much time coveting their gifts, blind to my own. I had been such a fool. Their world was being destroyed and I was safe. The guilt was unbearable. A new feeling surged through me, fierce and powerful, burning away the last remnants of my self-pity. It was a clarity of purpose I had never felt, even in my most diligent days. We have to help them, the thought screamed in my head. It wasn't a question, it was an order from my very soul. I turned to the mass of anxious ants around me, my voice finding a strength I didn't know I possessed. We are safe, but they are not. Our strength is not for us alone. We must march. I expected hesitation, but I was met with a unified, instantaneous resolve. The colony mobilized with a breathtaking efficiency that brought tears to my eyes. This was our true strength, our real beauty. We formed lines, a living chain of purpose and determination. As one, we marched back up into the maelstrom, a tiny army against impossible odds. The rain still fell, the wind still howled, but we were undeterred. We had a mission. We pushed through the flooding, our combined strength creating a path where none existed, a tiny beacon of order in the overwhelming chaos. We found the butterfly first, clinging to a shredded leaf, her wings battered and heavy with water, her spirit broken. She looked at us, hundreds of us swarming around her, not with fear, but with a dazed confusion. "Be still," we communicated through gentle touches. "We are here." Dozens of my sisters carefully slid beneath her, forming a living, breathing stretcher. We lifted her, carrying her weight together, moving with painstaking slowness back towards the dry safety of our tunnels. We were her wings now. We were her salvation. Next, we heard the faint, terrified chattering. The squirrel was huddled in the exposed roots of her fallen tree, shivering, soaked, and utterly helpless. Her lightning speed was meaningless here. We surrounded her, a blanket of empathy and action. Some of us scrambled to gather dry leaves from protected nooks, while others began using our bodies and bits of earth to build a small protective wall around her, shielding her from the relentless wind. We worked in perfect, silent harmony, a testament to a strength she had never noticed, a strength I had never appreciated. Then we saw him. The proud peacock was a pitiful sight, hunched and defeated, his glorious feathers matted with filth, his head drooping. He could not even lift his crown. He looked at our approach, and I saw a flash of shame in his eyes. He who was so admired, now brought so low. Without a word, we got to work. Hundreds of us swarmed over him, not as pests, but as saviors. We used our tiny mandibles to meticulously clean the water and mud from each individual feather, working with a precision no other creature could manage. One by one, we felt the feathers begin to lighten. Slowly, with great effort, the peacock raised his head. Then, with a shudder that went through his entire body, he managed to lift his tail a few inches from the mud. It was a pathetic shadow of his former display, but it was a start. It was hope. A single, brilliant blue eye on a feather stared back at me, and in it, I didn't see vanity. I saw stunned, profound gratitude. We were not just cleaning him, we were restoring his dignity. The storm's fury finally began to ebb, its rage spent. The wind softened to a sigh, the rain gentled to a drizzle. A weak, golden light broke through the thinning clouds, illuminating the ravaged but now silent forest. The butterfly was safe in our nest. The squirrel was warm in her leaf bed. The peacock stood tall, his colors slowly returning to their dazzling glory. They all looked at us, at me, and the silence was heavier and more meaningful than any applause. They were alive. Because of us, because of me. The peacock was the first to speak, his voice soft, stripped of all its former arrogance. "I have never seen a beauty greater than yours," he said, and his eyes were fixed on me. The squirrel nodded, her voice a whisper. "I could leap across the sky, but today I learned true strength is not in the show, it is in the service." The butterfly gently fluttered a still damp wing. "You cannot fly," she said, "and you may not shine as I do, but you saved us all. That makes you the greatest of all." Their words washed over me, not with pride, but with a deep, humbling peace. The hole in my heart, once filled with bitter envy, was now overflowing with a purpose I had always possessed but had been too blind to see. I looked at my sisters, at my strong legs, at our deep, safe home. I was an ant, and for the first time I felt not small, but mighty. Not insignificant, but essential. The greatest gift was not what others had, but what I could give. My weakness was always my greatest strength.